Maya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Kande Laje Gwenje Togan Raga Shosa Bonde Chunzen Cheje Yabo Gwenje Losan Sedan Cheba Nede Sheksos Dünye Nanga Sendi Bende Cheje Lama Jebe Zumga Dalo Debe Sena Shinjo Tenpa Geche Geya Shuso Sheche Chungun Jawe Lodu Gesan Nave Genjo Leshes Tabe Beje Lamenze Tongde Tembe Dende Lacha Yewo Chuye Nanso Medo Tishin Dobe Nansen Teja Wesha Yitu Chujin Yazo Sena Xingzhuo Qela Cheba Kanxi Tongmen Dune Saba Lunga Yison Migi Jiji Tiabaran Dongba Sumji Mede Ningnen Jeban Tabu Soso Ningme Tude Mande Cheye Bambe Denjo Denye Gombo Cheye Labjin Zeba Daja Samban Tabe Yira Cheze Laman Damba Tena Chugyu Kala Tenzin Dorjee Cheda Sambe Duje Semba Sabje Cheye Chawa Abdo Namda Vese Yingle Shempa Sonjo Gola Chado Minga Tame Nawo Sugo Side Bando Meno Demba Tazo Chini Sabe Yewa Dendan Jowa Gwenla Kangben Tebra Chizu Losan Chaba Dembe Ningbo Rendo Seje Mingme Zebe Dejin Jende Time Kembe Wangbo Jambe Tebo Mali Zomze Kanjin Kebe Zogyan Zonga Losan Tabe Shabla Sowa Mingme Zebe Dejin Jende Time Kembe Wangbo Jambe Tebo Mali Zomze Sanwe 강제 개별 조견 종가 로상 차배 샤블라 소 메메 제베 대전 제레스 제메 켐베 왕보 잠베 대보 마레 좀제 사베 강제 개별 조견 종가 로상 소원데 방데 사베 라마 림보 다소 지우로 벤데 대쇼 가지 침뷰 권내 제소 고송 토지 무주 제도 방데 사베 라마 림보 다소 닝가라 벤데 대쇼 가지 침뷰 권내 제소 초다 태모 외도 만데 사베 라마 림보 다소 닝가라 벤데 대쇼 가지 침뷰 권내 제소 창조 닝뷰 덴보 안주 마산 제메 셰라 바르 마제 망가 남게 오고 소소 라리 이제 주 대존 예외 용라 창제 로 데야 타 가데 가 바라 가데 바라 보데예 소하 대양 타 가데 가데 바라 가데 바라 삼가 보데예 소하 대양 타 가데 가데 바라 삼가 보데예 소 게레 동다 야조 메데 네베 겐단 제보 텐보 로시 페조 다시 된장 안조 사신베니 조 다게 최전 예배 소난제 로로 벤제 산제 로바 최단 조제 천안로 장조마도 다네 잠조 다게 최전 예배 소남제 로라 핀제 산제 로바쇼
特别是3年比公小学什么，什么东西是的什么意思
？Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it Bodhisattva motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. With that kind of at least contrived bodhicitta, altruistic motivation, we should participate in this Bodhisattva's discourse on the perfection of wisdom gone beyond, or prajna paramita.
我在学生这里也开始可是，东西都写了可是，他们外面写对吧？地里的嘛，他东西都不落的，哎你，他把他就可是从那古的时候，他们写的。
So where we left off in this guide by Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva, so we mentioned that, of course, from a Prasangika Madhyamikan point of view, in parenthesis, realizing emptiness or shunyata is a must for attaining liberation from samsara or nirvana, and also for attaining complete enlightenment or Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Those of you who have this English translation of the guide by Stephen Batchelor's, we are on page 148, and I think we will be dealing with stanza 41.
一般书是东西都不写，他们做不的，东西都不写了。他们简白，啷个做吧？天天他把他们写吧。童年的东西都不当不他当不了是，东西都被写了，啷个做吧？是啷个做吧？弄上一就个是。日本做吧，我东西都被写了等，钱呢？他把这样没得不得，做吧我当不呢？可是说刚把你一点是，可能现在东西都被，到把你没得吧，日本没得是就是，我把这样点呢是，快了做没有的，就这看个现在写了一份新闻多。这里，我的弄了，学生一上心当不到位，两天的没法承受，什么承受什么抗压，他把没法，送给现在一份新闻，当然讲话嘞，我们的一家他们没，你这啥老板对吧？那现在不是吧？那么小写作业都送给，杨大我这么上一等，就业等，上几等军属呢，让这一半那个西京的公办了店呢，他把送不送了？如果心中有这些，就是这些的，搞的弄的你成呢是第一个也承受这个什么个承受了是吧？但是这经济承受可能了，是吧？你的经济承受可能了是吧？没弄是，我听了刚才他东西多个的都弄在中国人，他弄是上一直都送学生上去弄了送下去，他弄的嘛还有啥呢？弄的上去个这些各种钱都有个说，可是我的听了他现在可是东西都把来， Kosa dame rakpato wasam yene tabazan tautuk marisi. Toto yindu di na yishene. Sanje wala tonyi to, tabato sanje to, tonyi to marisi, do di tig mari. Tabata yewa karito na ya ene top gui na tonyi to guri. Tonyi to me intil kasa tabato marisi, sanje Shiji doko song yas odi re ta hiya reade.
Shravakas and particular Buddhas, or the proponents of lower Buddhist school of thoughts or tenets, they claim that in order to achieve nirvana from samsara, it is enough to realize the coarse selflessness of a person, and there's no need to realize emptiness. In order to achieve enlightenment or Buddhahood, they said, yes, you must realize emptiness, otherwise you cannot achieve it. Now, Prasangika Madhyamikins are kind of arguing with them and telling them that realizing emptiness or shunyata or sunnata is a must in order to achieve nirvana or enlightenment. Without realizing emptiness, you cannot even achieve nirvana from samsara, forget about enlightenment. And so first, Prasangika Madhyamikins try to establish their point based upon scriptural authority or the words of a Buddha, or a Buddha's discourse. We call it lung, scriptural quotation. And so they tell them that in the different versions of Wisdom Gone Beyond Sutras, Pranjana Paramita Sutras, we have the really extensive long one. Then we have the middling version of Pranjana Paramita Sutra. Then we have the short version. Wherever you look in all these versions of Pranjana Paramita Sutra, it is clearly stated that one must realize emptiness to achieve nirvana and enlightenment.
Kola tambo di chungol sungyada duada tsol sungyada zoda eni gende de sungyada de lawas nyane chikbare yas sheda kola tambo de eni sanje sungyada gende de sanje sungre che jeja chikbare dos otus juba de kare tere karsa puyu dobi go lu de sanje kai bo juba dije kato se.
So Prasangika Madhyamikins, based upon scriptural discourses of Buddha authority, tell them that in the different versions of Wisdom Gone Beyond Sutras, Pranjana Paramita Sutras, it is clearly stated that emptiness or shunyata must be realized to achieve nirvana and enlightenment. Now, the proponents of the lower schools of thought, particularly we talk about Vipashikas and them, right? So they come back and say that, well, we don't accept Pranjana Paramita Sutras as Buddha's words or discourses. So in other words, that doesn't work with us, right? You're quoting something we don't accept as Buddha's discourses. So now the next debate is, or the strategy, if you will, Prasangikas use, is that they try to establish that Pranjana Paramita discourses are Buddha's word or Buddha's sutras. isn't it? So they try to establish that through reasoning, right? They quote it, so the quote was not accepted by them. That's not Buddha's word. Now they try to establish that Pranjana Paramita discourses are Buddha's discourses, and they try to do that based upon reasoning. And as we will see later, the reasoning involves that just as you accept that Buddha's first sermon or wheel of the turning of Dharma on the Four Noble Truth and related to discourses, Buddha's words, Buddha's discourses. And the reason you give us is that because they deal with the three higher trainings, training in higher ethics, training in higher samadhi concentration, training in higher wisdom, isn't it? So by the same reasons, we can establish that the other teachings given by Buddha in other turnings of the wheel of Dharma, that would include the Pranjana Paramita teaching, also deal with the same subject matter, isn't it? The same content, the three higher trainings. So by using your reason, we can establish the reason that Pranjana Paramita, as a matter of fact, is also should be accepted as a Buddha's discourse or word. Yes.
Sanji Lundi, Ale Hijin Lo Sung Yasibadro. The Hijin dot in Sanji Sung Marisilina, this Sanji Sung be Judin de la Colotombo, the Hijin does the Joja Lava Sudana, the Ganga Chiguare Shas, the Colotombo, the Sanji Sung, and the Hijin dot the Sanji Sung Yiri. Joja then Chiguare, Lava Sung, then Deuce. Or Toes do it, the letter.
So Geshe is basically summarizing, we just explained, and so first Pasangika Madhyamikas, contained and tell the lower schools of Buddhist thought, particularly Vaibhashikas, for example, that in order to achieve freedom from samsara, called nirvana or liberation, and to achieve complete enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, realization of emptiness is requirement, is a must. Okay, and so because this is what Buddha himself said in the Prajna Paramita Sutras, or in the Wisdom Gone Beyond Sutras. You can look up in the extensive version, the middling version, the short version. Buddha himself said it. Okay. And so now the Vaibhashikas, or they come back and say, you know what? Well, we don't accept the second turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's discourse. We only accept the first turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's words, and the second one, you quoted us, but we don't accept it. Okay? And so now the Pasambikas are using reasonings to establish that the second turning of the wheel of Dharma should be accepted as Buddha's discourse. And the reason is exactly the same reason they gave, right? They said, first turning of the wheel of Dharma is Buddha's discourse because it deals with the three higher trainings, right? Ethics and concentration and wisdom. So they said, well, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma also deals with the same subject matter. So if you could accept the first turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's word or discourses, why couldn't you accept the second turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's word as well? Because the reasons are the same. They are dealing with the same topic or the subject matters, right? So this, what we call establishing Mahayana discourse or teaching as Buddha's discourses, Tibetan called Tekjen Kaduf. This is a huge topic of studies and in my footnote debate in the monastic universities, And so establishing Mahayana discourse as Buddha's discourse is based upon reasoning, right? Now you cannot quote scriptural quotation so much, right? But they are not accepting it. And so as we have seen that if they could accept the first turning of the wheel of Dharma or the first sermon as Buddha's discourses, because they deal with the three higher trainings, training higher ethics, training higher concentration, training higher wisdom, then by the same logic and reasonings, why you couldn't accept the second turning of the wheel of Dharma as the Buddha's word? Because this also talks about the three higher trainings and practicing the three higher trainings. The reason is the same. The topic is the same, right?
There is a cause of consider so come he tends Rashi me Tony Doba Medabar Rabe Medal Chuduk Gomazan Tene Koala Joa Minjute you take on the Hera Parusimendo the long lays Chutan Rashi Tomba be London Beva Shansu Suba Kanya Toba Beva Sumba Shede, Sherry Persia Tonra Javali, Ubu disease the Tarva Nidu Gisala de Nanji, Sherry Persia Law Show. She so gay too soon gay young Tabazo Sanji Tam. You should run Sanji Parnanji, she's in the lava Dennis. Dene Toba Sona. Lobo Shino Lodrigi, Juju Geshe Dion, come the long day journey. The Gaji Shonju Sobo Tubashimke, Shonju la Shiba, Setai Yinji, TJ Shaju Kona Shiba Menos, what did that this way at the Sherapa Lava Show said the Sanjito the Nani Tony Doors, Tidisho Maris. Take was some conquer Nindo Rangi teaching Suina Suga Shaju talk when I take Gaga any Sherry Persian. Sherry Persian was said that Hijito Raja was there. So that the Donima Donani had the Tava Meva the long Didus. That the Sanjay Sum Maris, this Sanjay Sum race in the Garis and the Kaza Kolotombo da. So the Lavason Yaletea Gaga and Jojaka Chibari to the color Tambo the Sanji Soina and the Parvati Regu so to where did that TJ Carter say Kanja did was a Shijin Dorjee and Lul Tangaris, Julie and Gobalo Lul Tangaris was here or this. Tibasha Tambo Tamas third Tineba Nova Soji. Where may I say, in the thing made the Taria Shemore, but today songs on said that is in Tibashabuka Marcia, you did of the show.
So the Vibra-seekers and other like-minded proponents of lower schools of Buddhist thought assert that in order to achieve nirvana or liberation from samsara, it is must to realize the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. That would include coarse selflessness of a person. So that should be enough. But Buddha talked about emptiness, they do accept, but it's in order to achieve enlightenment. It's not a requirement for nirvana. And Prasangika Madhyamikas are telling them where Buddha said that realizing emptiness is a must, he's not only talking about Mahayana vehicle alone, or those who are seeking enlightenment. He meant it in terms of all the three yanas of the vehicles, isn't it? Hearer's vehicle, Shravaka yan, and solitary realizer's vehicle, Pratika Buddha yan, and Mahayan or Bodhisattva yan. He meant that realizing emptiness is must for any of these followers of the three yanas to achieve their, their nirvana and enlightenment. And so the Pasangyam Madhyamikas, they are trying to establish that Prajna Paramita Sutras are the discourses of Buddha through reasoning. The reasoning we said earlier, because they deal with the same subject matter as the three higher trainings, which you already accepted, right, in your first studying of the Wheel of Dharma. Now, why this controversial thing has come about is because the first studying of the Wheel of Dharma was like most well known. It's like by everybody accepted. But the second turning of the Wheel of Dharma, everybody, right? And then there is some kind of a belief by many that Mahayana teaching on emptiness is really not by Buddha, because that was something Arya Nagarjuna, right, brought it up from the world of Nagas, isn't it? There's a whole story about how Nagarjuna was invited into the serpent's world, right, Naga world, and then coming back, he brought back different versions of the Pranjana Paramita Sutras. So they think that it was Nagarjuna who talked about this, not Buddha, so therefore we don't accept it as Buddha's word. This is how the whole debate comes about. And as we said earlier, Thekchen Kaduf, establishing Mahayana teaching as a Buddha's word or discourse, is a huge topic of debate and thing in monastic study curriculum. So where all of this debate are coming about, just to explain a little bit more, is if you look within Buddhist school of thoughts or tenets, we call Drupta, Siddhant, right? So we have four major schools. We have Vaibhashika school, called Realist school. Then we have the Sautrantikas, the followers of the sutras. Then we have the Chittamatrin, or the mind-only school. And then we have the Madhyamigans, the middle way school. And within Madhyamigan, we have two schools. One is called Sevatantrika Madhyamigan school, and then the other one is called Prasangika Madhyamigan schools. So among all these Buddhist schools of tenets, thoughts, right, we are just only talking about Buddhism here. Except for Prasangika Madhyamigans, all other Buddhist schools of thought say that in order to achieve nirvana, it is enough to realize the selflessness of a self-sufficient and substantially existent person. Yeah. There is no need to realize emptiness. So that's good enough, right, to help you realize nirvana. But Prasangika Madhyamigans alone said, no, that's not good enough. That's a very coarse level of selflessness that one must realize emptiness even to achieve nirvana, and of course to achieve enlightenment, realizing emptiness is a must. So because you can see there's a different viewpoints within Buddhist schools of thought, so the debate comes up, right? Now just to kind of simplify it, except Prasangika Madhyamigans, right on the top, Sevatantrika Madhyamigans, who are also middle way school, and all the schools below, mind-only school, Chittamatrin, below that Sautrantika school, Sutra followers, below that Vaibhashikas, realists, they all say that realizing the selflessness of a self-sufficient, a substantially existent person, in Tibetan called Rangyatuba, self-sufficient, Zeye, substantially existent person, realizing that there is no such a self is enough to realize nirvana. Okay, yeah.
Tijin long karmin debe lodo gobi shedi. Tijin kato tombare shene se. Zube kad chewe sher. Goba yinu se. Odi sheda da long chamba de rigbai no sui na shina sui na kelen go res. Long sa kelen de yiji fuji long de long changsa di paru kelen go yara. Je sa de 다 팀메와 로드 상제 송게는 말이 제가 주제 리그먼트에서는 어다데 로드 상제 송에 영제 리뷰 두고라 되는 다 되고.
So in a debate, what happens, metaphysical debate, is that you can quote scriptural authority, but more important is you have to bring forth what we call valid reasoning, isn't it? Because scriptural authority could only work to a certain extent. If the scriptural authority is accepted by both parties, right, the affirmative and the negative, right, in the debate, then it works. But if one of them don't accept the validity of such a quote, then it doesn't work, right? Whereas valid reasoning must work with Buddhist or non-Buddhist, doesn't matter, because that's a reasoning, right? And so that's why, as Prasangikas first quoted the Pranjana Paramita Sutras, right, to establish that emptiness must be realized to achieve nirvana enlightenment, they come back saying, you know what, that's what you accept. We don't accept it, okay? So here the scriptural quotation is not working, right? They said, well, that's where we disagree, you know? And so now the Prasangikas have to make efforts to establish that Pranjana Paramita Sutras, as a matter of fact, are the words or the discourses of Buddha, you know?
What did Jeda Jeda Rigbai in the Suyan Chan long came and Rigmaris did that. Tata the Shishi does Saji Kame, Hin Ruyat, teaching quarters here, what they must some to intelligent hearings with this.
So that is the kind of a logic we are following here, right? So now and a couple of things we will see is that how Prasangikas are now using reasonings to establish that Pranjana Paramita Sutras are Buddha's word or discourses, right? So they have to establish that, right, based upon reasoning, because now you can't quote anymore Buddha's words here.
What the Nipani Kede so Kamba Juni dance Kede Tijin Doles Tigi Him Tirani Yes Carmudation Sema came Melebe, did you sit to Tony, don't Mena, Taba Taya, Meta Joani, Jujat Zombie Share, Marjava Hena, Una, Yindu, Devaki, Long Timigi, Dode Nanzo, Nani, Kaim, Shida Jojena. That they said that she did do. Shiraj Pershim dots in the Kamari, and the Colaton was the guy is allowing Colaton was the guy, but the Gizikaris. What did he had and the Gozushin, that Colaton was the guy in the end, Lavasoni, the Dengorshina, and the Colababet Dengor, should I guy in the Dugozo, but do not the Dugoza.
So to establish Mahayana teaching as a Buddhist discourse in a larger context, but in this particular case, Pranjana Paramita Sutras, Wisdom Gone Beyond Sutras as Buddhist discourses, Prasangic Madhyamikans are first asking, so to speak, okay, give me the reason, based upon which you accept the first standing of the wheel of Dharma as Buddhist discourse of word. Yeah. So they said, you know what? Because that really deals with the three higher trainings. That's why we accept it. Talks about theoretically and how to practice them. And so now Prasangikas said, okay, now we use the same reason to establish that Pranjana Paramita Sutras are Buddha's word because they deal with the three higher trainings that you already accepted, and they deal with how to practice it, right?
What they did that, did the word, because 이 콜라 당부즈도 이 까이메데 태교다 니도데 이가 투모 누도 하시 어디 조리 이 콜라 바바데 이 그래서 까이메데 니도데 키는 말이지 제도데 저 말이지 라위나 어디 지금 까이메 송야데 그래서는 주자다 저거가 지금 라바서 년을 때 지금에다 주자 지금 된도 제가 까이메 지금 이게 어디 좋다.
So in stanza 42, as they were giving the reason that the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, first sermon, we accept as Buddha's discourse because they deal with 3 higher trainings. Moreover, that we both accept it. We accept this as Buddha's teaching, and you accept this Buddha's teaching. So we both are in agreement on this one. But that's not the case with the Paramita Sutra. Right? You accept that as Buddha's words, and we don't accept it as Buddha's words. So we have a disagreement on this one, right? But then the person can say, well, but based upon the reason you gave us, why can't you? I mean, you should be accepting Pranjana Paramita as Buddha's words because they also deal with the 3 higher trainings. You already accepted them, Yeah.
Lungdung deda pabesi, chela shida motobi. He said that motobi te young wishing. Chin lung deda jobi, juzi meva, subatobes rimbes in Jubal Nang. Dodal juk. Mumbe chuyi the Mingiva Jukba Shembo, Dema Imbatabu, Yen Kangini, Kamain, Yen Kangini, Kama, Munsama Terry, Yeshevaina, Losun Tomaso, yes. You said in the teaching, the lion. Sumbaina. Lasutamba saw yes. The gypsy tenny, teaching, don't the lion. Sumbayi says, Tedajam, Kajobo. Tedakaimi, the Kebaran. Juseton, Tonzula, the good. Sumba yola. Till he Jose Chevala, Jose Chevala, to the Laguna, Sumba Yodo. Till Hindu, Jose Chevala, de Mugoba, Kansa, come. Deva Hinkan, Nije. Deva Tibes, Kazamar, Katsemar, Gober, Kansa, Deva Hinkan, Romani, Deva Tiba, Samar, Deva Juna, Nizik Dabu, Chubdab Tumu, Geshe Phuntsok Gyeltsen. Gaden but Joro. Till he did Geshe Chevala, do me go by. Cause he never hear kind of wrong. You need it, to be customer dry. Generally, needs it though, so to that to move. Geshe Phuntsok Gyeltsen. And the Gaden Joro. What is that? And the song was the Geshe on the Tajiri, Geshe Tamagona. Any tumor in this Ganga Kari was called Ganga killing in the lingua. So that Geshe doesn't Chadu, Sojika irritated. Geshe Shantideva Jewelry. Jidako killing you make dark maris. Jida killing and tumor in this Ganga. Shana Niga Yos Ganga in 까이고지 까마르와스 시대의 주제된지 두고 뒤리지 다다디 콜로 담보다 콜로 파워즈 이 주제라와서 때문에 중국에서 어디 까이버티 접두고 소제스
So Geshe-la's reading of the commentary and explanation pertains to the first two lines of stanza 43. When we try to establish a discourse as Buddha's discourse or word, really we have to look at its very content or the subject matter, isn't it? The reason, the condition you gave us, which means the Tibetan word condition can be translated reason, you gave us why you accept the first sermon as Buddha's word is because you said they deal with the three higher trainings. And so it's for the same reason, you should be accepting Pranjana Paramita Sutras as Buddha's discourse of the word, right? Because in terms of the subject matter content, it's the same, Just because two people agree with something, that text does not necessarily become a Buddha's word or discourse, right? You cannot. And in that case, there are a lot of texts which are common to both Buddhists and non-Buddhists, right? They're common, sciences, like said by both Buddhists and non-Buddhists. Then now we have to say these are Buddha's word, right? That's not what we're debating about. Buddha's word or not is really, the criteria is what's the subject matter content, right? So the three higher trainings. So as we said, in the Mahayana discourses, the Sutra Pitaka, basket of discourses deal with training in higher samadhi concentration, just like what you accepted. And the Vinaya Pitaka, the basket of moral discipline, monastic, deals with training in higher ethics. And then Abhidhamma Pitaka, the basket of knowledge, deals with training in higher wisdom. So the subject matter content are exactly the same. That's what we both agree with that, right? So based upon that, so you should be accepting Pranjana Paramita teachings are Buddha's words.
These words are the Kola Tomboda with the guy with the children who do it when you go do it to us. Said the Dagmundus. In the Kola Parva, the children can't do it, but yet do your money. She said, could you pay Jesus on the Gozu, some guy, but you won't go to Mundus. What is it?
So as we have already seen this, the lower schools of Buddhist thought are saying that in the case of the first sermon, turning on the wheel of Dharma, both of us already accept as Buddha's word, right? We don't have any debate, disagreement. But that's not the case with the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, and you accept it as a Buddha's discourse. We don't accept it as a Buddha's discourse. So we have a disagreement here. So you cannot compare the second turning of the wheel of Dharma to the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, which both of us already accepted as Buddha's word, right?
What is that? This is the thing that in a Kola Tomboda, there in Sanjay Kamai, the Telaya, Shirova, Sanjay Kamindu, Tizokia, Zuba Yorvas. She said, Zuba Yorjivo, Sanjay Kamai, and the Kola Tomboda, the Sanjay Kamai, the Shiru, Zuba Yuvasis, what you could do that goes on Gorva. Shitama. You do then and the color parvati currency over you do Maris. And the color Tambodi Kai when you can do a ticket in Dharma Larva. But that day and the color Tambodi are shiros that and you do the new Sungumar was shiros car heading whereas.
No.
What you goes on done. Cheda Chiron de Karsa de Chirova. This is what Churong Beka Melema Chuo Ka Mai Doctor Maris. The Chiruba Ka Mai in Kola Tomoto there Ka Mai Vota. In Chiruba to Ka Mai Davis is what he goes to the Dankers.
And so, as you remember, Vaibhashikas and Southern Tigers primarily are telling that in the case of first sermon, you and I both agree with that, so we have no problem, disagreement. The second one, we got a disagreement, so because this agreement, so it cannot be accepted as Buddha's word, right? And so just because we have a disagreement, it does not disqualify this second turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's word, you know. If that's what you're using as a logic, well, then a lot of non-Buddhists have problem with the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. They don't agree with too many things Buddha said. So now, right, because there's disagreement, right, between Buddhists and non-Buddhists with regard to the first teaching Dharma, so do you want to say that now the first turning is no more Buddha's word? Because there's a disagreement, right? Just because you don't accept it as a Buddha's word, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, that does not mean that it is not a Buddha's word. It's just that you don't accept it, right? And so this is how the same logic they use to establish their case is used against them, right? To establish that second turning of the wheel of Dharma is a Buddha's word or discourse. So Geshe-la's reading of the commentary and explanation pertains to the last two lines of stanza 43, and it may be related to the next stanza as well. So as the debate is happening between Prasangika Madhyamikins and Vaibhashikas and Southern Tigers, lower schools of Buddhist thought, and so some of the reasons they are giving is that because a lot of people believe in something that will make whatever they believe in as valid or authentic sort of thing. Yeah? And if people disagree, then what becomes a contentious issue, then they think that cannot be valid because that's disagreement, right? And so now the person is saying, like, there's a flaw in your logics here, isn't it? just because there's a disagreement, it does not disprove that something is not Buddha's word. Just because too many people believe in something, it doesn't have to be valid or authentic, right? Those logics are flawed logics, right? If you use that, then and that you have to accept that many of the things taught in the Vedic literatures, Vedas, right? They are mostly accepted by the Vedic followers, right? So now you have to accept whatever truth they have defined as the truth, valid, because most of them believe in that. That's your logic, isn't it? And just because there's a disagreement that something cannot Buddha's word, that's not true. This is what we are debating here. You don't believe the second turning of the wheel of Dharma as Buddha's word. We said it is. And we use the same reason you give us to establish the first teaching as Buddha's word, to say the second should be accepted as Buddha's word. It's the same subject matter. And so it needs to be established, right? Based upon reasoning, not how many people believe in it or how many people have issue with it, right? Those are flawed logics there. And then also, I think there are some terminologies in Tibetan, I don't know whether those are captured in the translation, something which is easy to say, like a negative discourse. This has to do with doing negative karmas and things like that, right? That will produce unwanted problems. Then they use something called literally translating here, which is not a good translation, a great discourse, chenpo in Tibetan, which is to do with positive actions and things like that. So there's a distinction between, right, negative discourse and a positive discourse. Let's use the word positive instead of great, Yeah.
Sumane teza gelon so nishi tens tela mingi gelon so ta gelon na mingi gelon keshe gelon sa ade nimu se gelon sa gelon na mo ki odi keseta tela ya ene toda be dacho mas gelon ya de tens no tembe se tawa ne toda be gelon yinde dacho be ni chu devata gelon dacho be ni ja joka je ne te taba nimu sabun jo pongo te baba la te poala nimbo sho doni samudo gobe goba le chege ye dinji cheje medaso judu tonsu koma shewa chowa taba kelan bini taba toji ge lamchi dinji butoni dobe hera lamdi misheba mase tonyi ji cha hi nebe shiro se jang chebe se je tonyi mado na sanji metaba mase da jumza ya metaba de da ga je tonyi to ji demo to ji cha se joro kaza demo to ji tonyi to ji cha se zuba isara
No.
se da de ene da jiba to tonyi to maris ene deji meda su rabaton digri se joro odi se
No.
ta tigi si ta cheta dolia ene teza gelon ye ka ju se adi toni moto ne tonda be gelon dachi ma se me shagri te na se da tebe zo gelon ye se di sangji ya gelon zu de sha odi tigi mendus odi se da se da dachi ma churun deva di dachi ma ngoni mari karsana tonyi to yo marvas
No, sure.
to chedan ene teza gelon ye na gelon ye joba kasya jiro odi se da churun deva de ene tembe zo gelon dachi ma ye se di tigi mendus odi se
No, sure. So now Geshe-la's reading of the commentary explanation pertains to stanza 45, in particular the first two lines. And so which basically says that the foundation of Buddha Dharma is the Arya Sangha, especially the Arahat, right, Sanghas. If that's to be accepted, what you have presented, is not good enough to, for anyone to be an Arahat, isn't it? So therefore, then you have to, you cannot accept what Buddha said, that Arahat Sangha is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Yeah? So as Geshe explained, because there's a certain word stated somewhere, it says, seeing the truth, you will be liberated. What need is there to realize emptiness, right? Those are the statements quoted, right? So that's their position. Realizing the truth, you feel liberated. So there's no need to realize emptiness. What's use of that, right? That's their take on that. And so Pasangyam Madhyamikans are telling that one could only become an arahat. Right? Arahat is literally means four destroyers, destroyer of enemy. Right? Enemy is the delusion. Someone who has completely destroyed the enemy of delusion is called arahat. Okay? So to be an arahat, one must realize emptiness. Otherwise, one cannot be. Okay? Now, because you don't accept emptiness as necessary to be to be liberated, it's not required. Then that means you cannot establish any example of what called ultimate sangha. Right, referring to Arahat Sangha, right? Because what you have presented is a very core selflessness that cannot lead anyone to become an Arahat, isn't it? So from that point of view, so you will not find any example of ultimate Sangha member, Arahat Sangha member. And if you don't accept that, then you cannot accept what Buddha said, that Arahat Sangha are the foundation of Buddha Dharma, right? Yeah, so this is how now the debate unfolds.
Temba ring the neve shedda, Nide Juru so you temba jamba zevi, Sheru she do you those, that you do the Tebetsa is equal Harisana. Sotos have no matters, Tebetsa is, you do the Tian Zigin Zoo degrees and degrees. Tebe no Sanji could no batches masoni. In the Julia, Kadu, Sayu Soja, the Kadu to Jenny, Shazan to my junior. Take the best all is the idea. There's a Genon, you think they were easy.
So the Shervakas do accept that the Sangha, monastic Sangha we're talking about, right? In this particular case, or Sangha, let's use the word Sangha, don't even use monastic, then there will be some technical problem here. Sangha is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. And so what that really comes down to is among the different types of ethics or vows, individual emancipation vows. Pratimoksha vow is the foundation ethics, isn't it? And so those who have taken the Pratimoksha vows and observed them, they are the foundation, so to speak, community of Buddha Dharma.
All these were Kursa. Young Kevin, dear Tony, Madonna, Sanji Meadow, Dajum Tower, Meadow, was. You do dozen on the temperature she went in. So the tower, the temperature in a tea, because cheddar. Neither Juru so, Temba Jamba, John and Zebe, Shiro here. She did it. She said, you do have a does of a jelly hair, that needed Jerusalem, Papa needed Jerusalem, does of Jerusalem, to those be they were reading never here, teeth and but there's a Genon treasure when you say, you didn't tell us, he didn't know you.
So, where it is said that Tenza, the root of Dharma, or the foundation of Dharma, is the Sangha, right, gelong it. So that has two ways of understanding it. One is what we just talked about, that those who abide by the patimoksha vows, individual emancipation ethics, are the foundation, right, keeper of the Buddha Dharma foundation, the root. Another understanding of this is there is a reference of this foundation to the 16 arahats. Right, 16 arahats have done so much contributions for the flourishing of Dharma. So the foundation of Buddha Dharma, right here, the Sangha, one says it refers to the 16 arahats.
돈이 말하는 상지 고마 봐줘. 인도 자지마 저거 말이지. 두바틀라. 지수가 돈이 마도 심이 딘지 지미가 제바 데. 딘지 시 리베 순수문에베 덴바 켐바 레멘달라. 시지 덴바 딘지다 제바 난지 디시 상지 도바 다쇼 티메지 냥메다와요 거 네데세 토무니베 차부스 대다강바 심마이 찹도를 자와 양나강바 나마니 담자다 심만이 따스 샤디 지지 스미바다리 제베 지지도 냥제장야 메도 비셰 시자로스 데다 아니 다다 돈이 마도나 아니 다자마자 토토야 메 다도 무사 가서 딘지방토 말바스 데미마도 세다 데미마도 딘지비바야 디지 데메 마도 디지 다지마 가서 딘지방토 말 딘지방와나 다지마리 말이스 세다 지스다 돈이 마도나 다지마자 샤이토 말이스 어디서 왔다.
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains to the second two lines of stanza 45 there. So Prasangikas are contending, as we know, that it is must to realize emptiness or shunyata, tongni, in order to be liberated from samsara or attain nirvana, and in order to be enlightened or become Buddha. Okay? And the reason is, if you don't realize emptiness, then you cannot uproot grasping at true existence, isn't it? As long as you have grasping at true existence, then you cannot be an arahat, right? You cannot achieve nirvana, so it will be really hard for you to establish the possibility of attaining nirvana or arhatship. As long as you have things appearing to you as truly existent, or you're grasping at them, right? You need to uproot the grasping at true existence to be an arahat. So without emptiness, there's no way to do that, right? So from your perspective, it's hard to establish the possibility of attaining arahatship because you don't, right, accept that emptiness is necessary to for nirvana.
Right. Ngombanyi shone sheba tawi nimu mojo sam rehi bang na yang sabo jose jang ma bang be se teta ji thoa thoba de na tinde di nimu mojo sa rehi bang ba ti temata di khoi to dazma Dajabati, Kelly, Goba, Joro, Jesus, in the Kansa Kayati with you to then you move Mama, you move death, Chong, Mother, Jilla, you ya Panto Maris. The Panto, and the court, the Towers that you could. Kansa Kayati with you, don't know what I Tavato series. We see the total Muju as a God no percent, teach you Martina, and Kansa Kayati, the Metabatanji, called to attack so this is it.
So Kishala's reading of the commentary and explanation pertains to the stanza 46 there. So the Viber seekers and substantikers as classic examples here, right? They contained that in order to achieve nirvana or freedom from samsara, one must realize the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. That would include impermanence. There is no need to realize emptiness, but that's only needed for enlightenment, not for nirvana. That's their position, okay, contention. And but the Prasangika Madhyamikas are telling them, like, realizing the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths is not enough to bring you to nirvana. You must realize emptiness for that, right? So by realizing the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, you may be able to overcome like a certain manifest delusions as explained in the Abhidharma, right? The basket of Pithiga, but you cannot uproot, right, the delusions, and so therefore you cannot attain nirvana or become arahat, right? That's the what Prasangikas are telling them. But if your claim is based on that through the realizing the 16 attributes, you can temporarily overcome some manifest delusions explained in Abhidharma, footnote, okay? Certain kind of delusions in Abhidharma has a debate, right? It's not delusion, etc. So you have to keep that in mind, otherwise it won't make sense. Footnote close. So then that means that as soon as somebody realizes the 16 attributes, the Four Noble Truths, then instantaneously he or she become an arahat. But that's not possibility, because you still have, right, the seeds of the delusions. You have not uprooted them. So how can you be an arahat, be in nirvana? You still have the seeds of delusions, right? Or you have not uprooted all the delusions.
This was Gozula. Kese in the Danzi Pogumena. In a Kazan, don't Tawatarang. Be Kazan Church or West, Tabato or West. Timothy the Troy, you said it is. Egypt is the Desipa, Dashabato, Desipa Gumena. In the Dameto was a Dashabatos Lagos, but the Dameto was a Dashabato was. The love you come to the Tono go during Dogro, she said the dog is. She has a churro that Dameto, the Congo made Dashabato Congo Bena. Dameto was a Dashabato Tawadu, so this Titan is it.
And as part of the debate, Prasangika Madhyamikans are pinpointing to the Viber seekers and substance takers that you contain that by realizing the selflessness of a self-sufficient and substantially existent self or a person, one is liberated, right? Then because there's no such possibility, because you still have to familiarize, right, cultivate that path. It's not that as soon as you realize that kind of selflessness, you be liberated instantly. You still have to cultivate, right, habituation with that mind and other paths in order to be liberated.
Koba Shejang, Sabon Bomuni Base, and Spomuni Base, Gozunji, Joshua knows. But that is was that the Timata the Choa you said the Kansa Rayati with the Tomato Lam the Kazi Kumna in the Tabata Yamaris.
No.
But this told me that in the Tabata till Kumna Togu Mena. In Damato Atara till the Tabata Tagris, or Gizend of the Gozuto at the ease was that.
No.
Rayat Kansa Rayati with the Lam the Kazi Kumna in Tabata Yamaras. The Kumbuko Lamsan Koto was in Juliana, and Koto was a Tabato Nuguros, was the Gozuta, the Koran Devata, Gozun Rivatan is this reason.
So I think Shala's explanation still pertains to stanza 46 there, and I think there's a word, this Dematha of the Tejur means instantaneously, meaning you become Arhat, right? That means the contention is that as soon as you realize selflessness of a self-sufficient, substantially existent person, then you become liberated. But that's not possibility. Any path requires a lot of cultivation, habituation, right? Nobody gets liberated right away realizing something. But moreover, that selflessness, cannot uproot grasping at self. So the grasping of self is intact. So how can you be liberated, right, with the grasping intact, right?
Because Java, the 2 minutes, the Hansa, you George. Rishi Major, Tidak, Yula, Yangzi Shima, Yinza George. Pumbo Pemba, Shivis, leg never touching long the regret. Top Gitoma in the chair. Cherry. The cab is new pambe does Chodnasi. Subadi, new pambe, Choatop, Suba, Mende. New pambe, Choatop, Gova, 2 days, do give it. Then there metal, Juju. Top a lance on a 10, new pambe, Choatop. Parubu Kelambala, Timidaji, Suedes, the Tingur Wadum, Tingur Ranula, Tindes, Tinde Lamji, Mobani Shives, Yumujam, Onijam. Sauteni Pomanila Denzin Yunjadi Shivi Nimon Sao Pomaniba Masi Mujizaya Pomaniba Shivi Tony be shared. Donna Tidavis Donna Tidavis Langi Yimu Tada Sever Pomani Munu. Tena Tida Lamji, Choataba Midici, Toyinje. Tida Lamji, Yumu Pony, Yundu, Yumu Pangja, Choa Midaci, Tomeno, this is the Tata di Mumba Nisi, Nimu said, Rankate, Nimu, what the one Jew sons born remote. Some Bango said that the Mabazan in the Karsa called Danzin Gabi, the Dangabi, the Pont of Maris. Tamunji Bondizana in the Dameta, the Pont of Vena, and the Munji Tobatara something, and the most of the Bond of Bomba Tagdus, Trella Mother. The Chidam the Mazy was that. The Indian you move. Some of them must say, Mujuzan upon me, she told me, so that nobody in the Shiva, the Ranja, the 0 thought of a Lamdel, and then you move upon to Mars, the thought of thing is using.
So as Krishna explained, that their claim, which is realizing the 16 attributes or the Four Noble Truths, which includes impermanence, will enable them to achieve nirvana or freedom from samsara. But Prasangika Madhyamikas are pointing out to them that by realizing those attributes or realizing the selflessness of a self-sufficient and substantially existent person may help you to overcome or even get rid of some manifest forms of delusions as stated in the Abhidharma, right? The knowledge basket, but it will not help to uproot all of the delusions, right? Especially grasping at true existence, and even with along with what you just claimed, right? But realizing the selflessness of such a self cannot just simply, liberate you, because it requires cultivation as well, isn't it? Just simply realizing that selflessness is not good enough to be able to even overcome the manifest delusions, Who knows?
What is it? Lei never keep it on Mongolia. So doesn't go here like so you do the sabi. Leg never doesn't tell us. Could it do it Sheba, Yajan? Then it said do it Mishaba. So young Shima Pembe. Leg never made up best, Toata Medeje. She go some. Tell a corner young Shima Pembe. Leg never told and she was mother. Metaso Tobe, Lana Dene, doesn't toba nam, Jiguna. Some of the tree Kansa, some of the tree David, Salji, Late of Yajan, Tedak, Yumu Bangblad, Rishi was some member, maybe young sea, Pensi Lady. Lela so debe, Sisi Shige, Lenda Cherry, Nilengi, Seba Lebani, then maybe she Yansi, maybe by Ye, Yeva Yigu, Tell Lena, Chegi Dajon, Duju Hanzati de Yula, Seba Bingeba in Sheva Matute, Seba Digmobe. Shuni Shiva Tagi, Nimu, saying Shiva Minaya. Mumba Mumbani, Kumu Maraba, Nimu Jay, Mini Shiva, Yojan. To that they were taking the Shiva and Kaza and Yate, Zid, Tobe Chambi, Shiva, Nimu Jay down. Kaza Ram saying to us. Is it the theatre? Siva Nimu Nobody Shiva Taji, Nimu Jimaiva Childa, use Yesherela. Teta doesn't Jula Siva Tambo Munju at some Rishi Siva Sima Munju Shiva Chidi made ye Gobicheru. Then the Dinziri Jambi Siva Nimu Parubu Lugja, Muma Shiva Taji, Nimu Siva Iba Sondu Base, the Shades. Children Nimuji Maibi Siva Yova, Temba Mende, 10 years down Ronu Lani, the Indian Yundu Dena Siva Nimuji Iba Gola. Tilmasi Deva, Shegi Lola, Siva, Nimu Shegi, Chawa Keleva here. There is Siva here. The day Sivani, Yelazuni, Nanset Jerry, Siva Shungi, Silko, the Shini, Tella Nimu Shegi, Chavi Soul. The Dayas. Sejile, Devagi, the Tijela Timothy, Tabataki, Nimuji maybe Siva Yeva, Tenji, Ranuji Siva La Nimuji maybe, Yimini so Jeva, Temeva Shiva Sha, Yesons. There does. See the Nimuji Maya, Kumuji did the message, what there says, Tichita Nimuji Maya Sigo Mercy. The Tenju was that because of the you do the ye shave, you Siva Nimuji the Mayana, and Jidang is Nimuji Siva Riori. See the Nimuji Maya said, Shirama Churon, there was a Nimuji in the Mariti, Shina Jidang Nimuji, the Siva usually. They might Siva Nimuji in the Chari, Nimuji, the Siva Nimuji Maiva Yomaris, what is said.
The young Joshua can Yabu Comaskin.
La,
The Yabus Comaskin, young Josh Canaron.
la.
Then the Yabu Comos, young Josh.
This was the same Nimuji, Kumoshi just Miss Lars, the Stonju Lens Jayaro.
No,
See, there's a data Rajati with you, don't share.
no.
And particularly, and the Karsa, Nimuji Siva Yomariti, she's a Siva Yon, the Jarling is, but that is down here.
No,
But this Siva, the Karsa, Siva Monishan was the Siva Maris.
no.
So the Churon Devata is Siva the Mainas.
No.
You do the Nikora de Siva Mayan, she's not Siva, they're still large, but Siva and the Nimuji, the Chakori, see the Nimuji, Mayan says the Nimuji might Siva Yomaris, what is it?
No, Seba and Nimuji.
You the chaps.
No,
That's the Nimuji might Siva or Sheldo, what Maris.
I'll call you the Karisha when you mention my visit with Karisha.
Use the Kuros the Kanja runs that with you, Tabby. Tell it, because Tansha, the Siva Sigoro.
You mention my baby.
Oh, because Siva Sigoro, Kansa runs it was with the Tansha, Nimu Sigmarva. Says that Nimuji Maya said, Churon Devata Nimuji the Maris. You know, you don't Nimuji.
That they gave us 7 the Shigoro again. Then the children they gave us 7. I think I shall skip explaining the last 2 lines of the stanza 46, so goes to 47, which is a little complicated here. That's why I had asked him to explain again. The 47, right? As we said, certain kind of delusion explained in the Abhidharma, accepted by the Vaibhasikas, right? And there are other kinds of delusions which are not explained there, but they're still delusions. Okay, so remember that. Okay, otherwise, if we don't make distinction, this whole thing is not going to make sense here. Yeah. And so, according to let's say Vaibhasikas, used as an example here, and so they say that there is what we call sepa. We usually translated it as attachment in the 12 dependent links, number 8. Okay, Tibetan called sepa. And so they accept that by realizing the selflessness of a self-sufficient and substantial existence person, you will be able to overcome the manifest, right, of that attachment, which they considered as the delusion of afflicted emotion. Okay, and then they said by realizing that selflessness, you already become arahat, right? Already. Now, Pasankhya Madhyamikas are telling them that we are not saying that what you accept as attachment is not attachment and delusion, but what we are saying is that there are other forms of attachment that may not be accepted by you as a delusion, but it's still there, so that needs to be removed. Okay? So what kind of attachment we're talking about? There still could be attachment that is arising out of grasping at a person as intrinsically existent, isn't it? So that attachment, right, is not a delusion that you have accepted, but nonetheless it's a delusion that needs to be removed, isn't it? And by realizing the kind of selflessness you presented cannot uproot that particular attachment. Does that make sense? From our point of view, attachment must necessarily be a delusion, affective emotion, klesha, isn't it? So I'm using the term attachment to translate the Tibetan word seba, the number 8 in the link of 12 dependent originations here. Okay. Is that clear enough? Okay. Yeah.
last day shall be say.
So Geshe thought we need to stop there, and first we will, okay, I got head nod. I teach non-verbal communications, so I got it. No question on the Zoom, so it's our time. So we would like to welcome your questions. Okay, where is the traveling mic? Oh, there you have. Oh, you have a question too? Oh, no, you just have the mic. Okay. Any questions? Let's start with here. Latmir there.
In the commentary, they use the term in the English translation of this commentary, two types of ignorance: one emotional ignorance and the other non-emotional ignorance. So, old translation. Does that refer to, and this is just what Geshe talked about just now, I think.
Okay.
So the emotional ignorance that they're talking about, does that mean afflictive ignorance?
Okay.
And the non-emotional, non-afflictive ignorance.
Okay.
So is there such a thing as afflictive ignorance and non-afflictive ignorance?
Sure.
Even though both of them are delusions, how could that be? But
Right.
that's
Sure.
altogether.
Kurang this would the shun knowledge na ke nyomon chengi maripada nyomo che mai pe maripa sa chu sarwa ge ye sig de ge nyomo chengi maripada nyomo che mai pe maripa sa ge chi ye wa chi sarwa ge ge di chabe na de ge
Today see the emotion may have said.
어디 로 와게 자자 코랑 라베 이나게 다 간저 이나 머리바 있는 뇨모 쟁이 배 캬바로 와게 콘세 데 간데시 예와샤 그래서 뇨모 쟁이 머리바데 가르레스 와게 뇨모 쟁 마이베 머리베 간데 샤도 그래서 강 머리바 있는 뇨모 배 캬바 있나로 와 근데 예와 간데 치고 그래서
The church said, see the emotion may have said this was. One share Chirama, to the Omesha, emotion my mess.
머리바 소다
Tell you, Dana, emotion radio race. Emotion may have said her. To the Omen, they are emotion the Maris.
did not stable jay the wa게
Oh, did that Ranja do that. Then you can be. See what?
now di koske 머리바 코랑 jan ro wa게
Maru Korata Maru.
머리바 뇨모 쟁이 머리바 다 뇨모 쟁 마이베 머리바 생이 치기로 와게
Oh, they knew your Maris, Maru was the emotion that shall Garza. See the emotion may have said, Siba ina, emotion be Chako is not. See the emotion may have said that Charles Gomba Devataki. To the woman Devata emotion Maris. She's an emotion my is
di koske di kosro wa게 di shusa mari chabe korean alo waga 16 la ya mari bal yewa ni chen ro wa게 nyomo chengi mari bas ro wa게 nyomo che maimbe mari bas ke shigos ro wa ta nganzo pena tenju be tawe na mari ba ina nyomo chen be chaba ro wa게 jesa da khonjo yewa ni chege yesa nyomo chengi mari ba la de khar res ro wa게 nyomo che maimbe mari ba la de khar res ke
emotion Marasi. Duta Oman, they were emotion Maribati.
di karsha ore a rangje de je
Marek was in the emoji Maribas. Tanda said emoji Kumo said, tell you there was like
yeah, I think it comes to the same thing. Yeah, the use term, yes, it is there because Geshe again go to attachment. As we are talking about ignorance, Geshe, right? It's explain attachment. I already explained that Geshe, so ignorance. Yeah, so it works the same way. According to the lower schools of Buddhist thought, right? They make this distinction of what we call a diluted ignorance and non-diluted ignorance. Let's say, right? That's my translation, right? That's emotional ignorance and non-emotional ignorance, right? So the emotional ignorance or diluted ignorance is, according to them, ignorance pertaining to the self-sufficient and substantial existence self, right? Now, the ignorance that is non-emotional or non-diluted would be the ignorance pertaining to the intrinsic, right? Intrinsic existence of a self. And so the person is saying there's another kind of ignorance, which is not what you accept as delusion, but nonetheless it exists. That's what it's saying. Yeah.
No, who accepts that? I think the Prasangikas also accept that, don't they? That there's a well, is it the term shouldn't it be non-afflictive rather than non-deluded? Because ignorance is delusion, so it cannot have non-deluded delusion. So you translate it as non-deluded ignorance, but ignorance is a delusion, so it cannot have a non-deluded delusion, right? So it has to be non-afflictive.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's maybe my translation. I usually translated the kleshya, nyunmong,
That's affliction.
as interchangeable as afflicted or delusion, right? Maybe that's when
Yeah, but
I use the same, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So shouldn't it be non-afflictive ignorance? For the grasping at true existence being a non-afflictive ignorance.
Yes. Non-afflicted emotion, that's right.
Okay.
Yes,
all
that's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
this one, see the new said this one. Mamba, you call in here. You move your money, so. This is the because the share the cut of the go chart in Tanzania. Yes, yeah, they are the current shade. The city museum said he got the lay on that could hurt you.
Then the Quran game, Marie Balia, Tinjuba, Nisha, I did you watch
I
the
just don't get a show. Get the show. See the museum.
I did do so. The conception was also in the Quran to Wale, Cherwag, talk about it.
Then you do museum, Marissa, Shiva show, just a Pajar show. Shiva Yomari.
Numojang Maimbe, Mariba said, Pachachi, Rons. Numojang Mariba, Shiva.
Do you museum, Maribal, Shiva show. Tell you, you must Maribal said, Pajama, Shiva show.
I think maybe Geshe what he added could be helpful, right? Because Geshe got stuck. You are asking questions based upon attachment. As you know, we cleared that one up. You understood nothing. But then, I did not say anything about ignorance then. No, but that's in general. So anyway, now coming back to what says, in the Prasangika Madhyamikan school of thought, right, they do make a distinction between, we can say, afflicted ignorance and not afflicted ignorance. That's what Geshe was trying to push him, right? And so Geshe said, oh, so that's nothing to do with I just ignorance. Yeah, no, it's question related, right? So Geshe says, according to Prasangika Madhyamikans, non-afflicted ignorance is not a state of mind or consciousness. It has to be imprint, latency. Right, the latency of delusions is the non-afflicted ignorance, and afflicted ignorance has to be just as accepted. It's a perception. In other words, it is a perception. Whereas in other schools, right, they accept. Right, they don't. For them, what's it? Shamba dinala ke nyumo chen ime yigalo sheba ingo chaworwa. Do the omala. Right. So in the lower schools of thought, they will accept both afflicted ignorance and non-afflicted ignorance as a perception or state of mind, cognition. Let's say it's a cognition. In the lower schools of thought, the grasping at self of a phenomena is a non-afflicted ignorance.
Just to complete this, so what they're saying here, in what Geshe explained at the very last, is that this non-afflictive ignorance, according to Prasangikas, which is an imprint, will be the cause for the appearance of true existence, which will necessarily cause grasping at true existence and all the afflictive emotion in the wake, according to Prasangikas, whereas according to the Shravakas, they don't accept that.
All right.
So for them, once you eliminate the
other
other
self,
16 aspects,
right.
realize then that's the end of it.
That's right.
Is that?
Right, yeah. I'll double check it, but that's what, yeah. Quran this is again, and the Quran Kodan Chevina Rawage, the Duda Omala Rawage, Kansa Ranget Tube, Zayoki, the Maribasho Rawage, that the Numojing Maribach Rawage, Kozo Kansan Pagash Killing Marwage. And in that, and the tangible on the Tavina, and a Karsagore. Nyomogi paksa de yorwage nyomoje mainbegi mariba drwage di chen chen ne chetam je rangshin duban temba duban nang rwage temba duban nang sa temba duban zin rwage odi chigo re so da yesam din de chigo re so da yewa chedan drwage
그래서 거기 천주로서는 뉴스 마을 마르바 세아디 박사 주고 뭐 희바산 세고
the paksa de chen chen ne tenzin
박사 de chen
tenzin chang
최다 중고성 또 뭐도 저 가사가 토도 자대야디 이 박사 되게 까들 세고로
no
근데 this 거다 매점이 배 타나지 나이나
no
엔코 매데 나사 뿌라 다 사디사데 엔코 수고톱 중중중 쪼고 차디요 말이
no
야
no
쪼고 디가 생에만 나사 디스여로 어디 디데지서 그 머리 바자세 디데지 와라
that's right. In the Prasangika Madhyamika school of thought, the imprints of delusions are the non-afflicted ignorance, and because of that, that we are not able to see all phenomena non-conceptually, directly, right? That's blocking everything there. And so if we ask them, what is this imprint you're talking about? The example Geshe gives is like a healthy person, right? You get sick. Then you go through long treatment, you recover from sickness, but still you're not the same person. There's some weakness, right, in a body. So the imprint is like that. Yes, go ahead. Any questions? Anybody else? Yes, Renee. No. Yeah.
Hi. So we talk about how not realizing the selfless form is not enough to escape samsara. We need to cultivate it, but sometimes, like when we meditate, we can tap into that consciousness of that selflessness for like a couple seconds, and we go back to the lay world as a lay person. You know, we go back to the the dualistic thinking and that, and it just nearly seems impossible to actually cultivate and sustain the selfless form. So, yeah, is it even possible to have that constant? Constant.
Okay. So your question is about, right, as a lay people, we try to reflect on the selflessness of that long thing I'm saying, right? Self-sufficient, it's a mouthful to say, right? And we could only do a couple seconds, and then we go back, right? The dualist appearance appears. So is it possible to maintain our mind in that state, right? Is that a question? How to maintain?
Yeah, how to maintain, you know, with the stimuli in the world, like after meditation, we go on our phone, and then we go straight back to, you know, the dualistic thinking.
Sure. Yeah.
He's asking how to maintain the realization of self-existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how to maintain that, right? Sure. Okay, so you're talking about realization, how to maintain that once you come out of meditation. Is that what it is? Or you're talking about how can we maintain our mind on that state for a while? Because we only could stay a couple of seconds. That's how I understood, right?
Yes, because we need to maintain that in order to escape samsara. So is it possible for a lay person to maintain that and escape samsara, or does it have to be like a concentrated practice, like a monk who's...
Sure,
yeah.
okay. I think I understood your questions about it, yeah. Quran can show the issue again that, and Quran get Kansa Rangja to be the Tonga de la Shartse, that the Tongi la Kotaka Resum the Rogue, for Love to Marwa. That Angazoda Jidangi, me Pavasim in a dequal summer town in a same decal that Karsa Kasis in native Yankola or again. Decal com Java in a com the native Marwaga, nature Yamara, the second Kasis the Yankola or again. The Neko Nina de Shawing was the Lavado com Takazan, the Dirwata. A Chedop Gosoris, that Chilo wrote the Dekala, the Neko Nina Nawa machine, Tagigi, some Tango Digi, Pingi or Marwagan. Saying one at Taneg, Dichik, 준 경다를 간대 경고를 서와게 same detail 네트 서와게 네네 계세 다 그 저와데 셰브사 또바이나 또바디 다스 레가 두고는 가려면 서와게 딜레 또바디기다 가서 막 균으로부터 경으로와 다 니나다 되게 뭐에 탑셰로 체 가려레스 거서게 게 센스게
다그 윤조 탑시 될다 먼저 신의 줘야 지금 말해 자 어디 된 거다 거기 네 엠바 대아도다 아니 신의 줘야 튕기지가 가서는 이는 그 윤때 뭐 리무돼야 될 어디 신의 줘도 돼요.
So Geshe says, so that's why in Buddhism we stress so much importance on cultivating what we call shamatha, calm abiding. Okay? So only then we are able to have a stability of the mind, whatever we focus on, and may be able to maintain it, right? So until we have the calm abiding state of mind, which in the footnote is the 9 stages of mental development, all of that, right? So I'm not going to repeat that. So until we have that, it's very hard. Our mind really does not sit on any topic for long, right? So to be able to manage it, maintain, so we have to, to work for achieving calm abiding first. Yeah.
가도 좀 해야 되다. 거기 공제도 꼭 유연도 야는 공부를 못해. 바로 볼때 공부 this is too 말아.
But another way, like a part of the process of cultivating calm abiding is that, we have to have a kind of a sustained, regularly meditating on that, right? We cannot just do a couple of days and then we take off and then we come back, right? It's just like we have to consistently, right, do our practice, right? That's important. Consistency is important. Yeah.
And is trying to escape samsara also a form of attachment?
Oh, I see. Trying to get out of something. Is that a form of attachment?
Yeah.
다 간제 코완에 트데시어로와게. 다 코완 알 텐데 요마로 바 트데시어로와. 트데데야 착바를 왜사게.
그 말이지. 저 말이라. 되는 되바다 착바 찍어지고
seeking freedom or liberation from samsara is not a form of attachment. And there's some kind of, looks like Geshe is kind of referring to that. I think in the English translation before, the word Geshe is translated as desire. Okay? And so that's the issue, right? Every form of desire is not necessarily attachment. There is a desire in the sense of aspiration, right? So anyway, to cut short, his answer is that is not an attachment form of. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
So, trying to follow up with the question before. So, even if we develop a regular meditation routine, like every day,
right?
Is it actually possible for a layperson to achieve bodhisattva? Like.
Oh, I see. Okay. Bodhisattva will realize that
state, because we can get there slowly, and I think the progress is very slow.
Okay,
in it takes decades to do that, but to truly tap into selflessness and cultivate that, as you said, it's just it looks like an endless road.
Sure. Quran takes a tangme toil ravage. 당매 또야 아니 당매리야 직셈 내 되버도 균경으로 봤게 당한저 지담이 패버를 치면 이나로하게 다 균대네 곰테스트 잡아이나 아니 즉 담에 또 투야를 중간에 요러 말해서 당매 라디오를 하람들 라지컬 고 타로도 니에메 뒤저로 스도스라하게 강사 패와 저기 당매 균도 곰나 스테스다 균 곰스 모르하게 공부이나 아니 당매사에 된 가서 또 투야를 요러 말해서 또 스텝이나 당매사에 또 투야 미저로 스도스게 배 가지고 수박에
근데 공부 또 토그를 해서
그거로 딱봐 테스트 좀 딱 니们가다 공부하게 요마로 딱 가지고 공부해 딱 개인이 균된 걸 순수하게 딱 거라다 라면서 니말에 다 추지지 공부 차샤 다도 균된다는 거 당매 동안에 또 토그를 해서 거다
또도 다 당매 찍고 공부다 손이 숨기려고 그냥 손으로 쏘야 곰치고 잡나 배도 말이야 손으로
손이 숨대잖아 다 같이 깨워들 또 토그를 해서라고 그러다
또 토그러다 그거는 또 맞았는데 상지야 다시
다이나 콘센트로 이렇게 가져 공부를 사디운 거로 하게 내지대로 하게 당 아주 최저 찍라 검투고 말하게 최저 찍검 초사비나 또 그러게 다 당면 No, I just right. Because Geshe-la, I want him to hear, right, with the whole assumption we're coming from, right? Because Geshe-la is in a very idealistic world. He will say what is there in the text. His answer is, right, if you regularly meditate on selflessness, right, but that alone is not enough. We have to also accumulate merit, right? If you combine merit accumulation and meditation, yes, we can realize selflessness, right? He said, you know, that's what he must say. But I'm telling him a little bit more specific. I know you didn't say it that way, right? As a regular people, at the most I can meditate was 1 hour on really that, right? If I maintain 1 hour meditation, accumulate some merit, so is it possible, I change the question, in this life I can realize self-realization? So just a little more particulars, right? Right? But Geshe did not answer that one. So there you go. So, yeah. So he gave you the answer, right? It is possible. Right, with consistency, accumulating merit means creating positive energy. Yes, we can realize. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Kind of like supporting his question, isn't it also like the basis of that concentration is like ethics, kind of like you were saying, like accumulation of merit. So maybe, you know, observing like the 5 lay precepts or something is something that he can do to better strengthen that meditation.
그 저와들 대바타 바이나 다 단다게 디 가서 다 총리 숭대 차고라로 와게 총리 숭대 제 디게 차세 지리야 다다기 간서 그들 저와들 댄서 결론이 있어요 와게 다 시자 라버디 간서 추림 라바로 와서 가리네면 와게 제나다 제나 아구미나 이바이나 다 개인이 돈바이나 개인이 돈바 디수 아 디갈 콤캡 채나다 고 총리 냠도 도디고 와서 그러게 디디고로게 개인이 그 돈바데 순고고로 맞아 저 검 잡아 양 침바다 땅 대den 디고 말서 왔다게
다 거기 초제다 다 문자사야 소동소
얘네 다 돈바 여면은 디 순고로 와게 맞아
다 되면 되게 지마다 다 가니 소다 가네 저서 부서를 그 샤기로 소가 타가요 말
나 계시겐 돈바 거를 내매베나 엔 돈바 순고하라 가라게
나
돈바 거를 내매나 와게
내면은 너무 생각해요 말 진짜 기득 봐
템베 사와 메로다
야
템베 사와 메로로다
그래
템베 사와 메버 차르 돈바 거를 요마로다 소소
알레 대자 결혼이 이제 대다 대해서 되게 말이
말 디데 말이 왜 디마르게 대자 결혼해서 가가로 말이 다 템베 사와 등가 라바를 라고게 라바 송해야 돼 제 라바 메나 레메나 라바 송해 요마로다 메나 데 자와 거를 메샤 말해
말라바 송야제 다 도말랑은 송야데 뭐 대부분 결정이야 요러
Just try to get as clear answer as possible, right? Because that's part of becoming a professor in America. I just try to get as clarity as possible. As you said, right? So Geshe says, yes, if you have already taken certain precepts or vows, right? Those are the foundation, right? As a lay person, you might have taken like any of or all of the 5 layperson precepts. We call upasaka, upasika. So that is a foundation, right? But I was saying, like, if you have not taken any precept, right? So what do you do with that? I said, well, at least still we have to follow the law of karma, right? So you're not going to, because I have no precept, so I am free and can do anything, right? So you still have to, respect and follow the law of karma, right? Good action brings good result, bad action brings result. And then he said, in terms of accumulating merit, right, you just can't list it. There's 100 different ways, right? Whatever way you can, right, by being generous, by being kind, by making offering, by helping others, all of this are part of accumulating merit, right? So there's no limit to this accumulation of merit. Okay, yeah.
Relate to his question.
Yeah.
The Prasangikas we heard here, they say that they accept the fact that if you directly realize the 16 aspects of the Four Noble Truths, then you will eliminate the manifest afflictions.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that somebody who, like you said, taps into selflessness, which implies the realization of 16 aspects, does that mean that they will not have the mental afflictions for the rest of their life? So that answers your question. If they pop up, that means that you don't have that realization. But that's my question. If if that's the case.
Okay, let me rephrase to see if I understood it right. Let's say going with their way. But
No, the Prasangikas say that they admit, they
Oh, no,
accept
they
it.
admit.
Okay,
What I'm
okay,
saying is
accept
going
that.
with their way, right? Personal point of view,
Right.
realizing the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truth will overcome the manifest delusions.
Yeah, and
right?
does that mean that the person who has realized that, directly realized the 16 aspect, and selflessness, of
Right.
course, on the
Right.
basis of selflessness,
Yeah.
they will not have manifest afflictions for the rest of their life after they realize it, you know,
Okay.
even when they're not in meditation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I got it. Kurang this go again that and uma tengyo wagi karso gore tabayina dagi dubda oman shebe ki midaso chudu koma dige rawage ane nyumo ngunju batanda karsa di mine ngumban shebe rawage gonen tu lab rawage di keling go was gonen tu bat keling go was age jadi imba ina kesi 가사 랑제 테베 제이제 동베 동바데 토네 뇨몽군주바 곤네바 이나로와게 네 라이베 통다 가서 다 미세델이야 뇨몽군주바 양조 찌기 마레세베 통다레 가르라고 그래서게로와 다가서 그 다음에 스토어요 바다게 다음에라고 스토어요 와 다음에라고 스토어도 이제 디 왕게 뇨몽군주바 찌기 마다 곤네발라로 곤네로 미세디나로 뇨몽군주도 양조 찌기 마르라고 그래서
랑게도 저 초도 뒤에 뉴모디 메자야 가야래라 축송을 줘야 저 강가시 저거를
the Mizidina Shukshong with the Kairo. What Geshe says is that yes, Pasangir do accept that, but realizing that kind of selflessness, that's kind of lost. So I don't want to repeat the whole two sentences here, right? Now we know that kind of selfless, right? But realizing the selflessness that they establish in the other schools, that they can overcome manifest forms of delusions that they describe, which also means that sometimes some of the delusions are weakened, right? Others are they cannot manifest, right? The Mizidin alage 양조치기 말쓰고 응주부터 양조치기 말쓰고 봐.
라
다음에 뒤에 또 앞에 괜찮은 Mizidin 알아 녀목 응주 되게 양조치기 말쓰고 다.
다 뉴모 뭐죠 고노는 그래서 그래
고뇌에서 되다 마 거야 기통 말쓰고 다.
다 축성으로 축성으로 자 가도 도자 그 내가도 시다시도 무서워 저거로
아래 이제 다 거기 됐어 계속 오래네. 다 내가 계속 못 써.
다 제게 렌이 제쇼 이죠 제쇼
So I think what overcoming means is that, you know, that it might pop up, but it doesn't have the power to overwhelm you, right? So that's what it means, right? Sometimes it is not pop up. Some other times it bubbles up, but then it doesn't harm you in the sense, right? Usually that's what it means. Yeah.
It's a radical transformation
Yeah,
experience of the afflictive emotions. It's not
Right.
a person who has realized that will not really be overcome by the afflictive emotions.
Right. 제도 가는 강사 랑자티베 제이 동가삼 또와 지금 이메 있네로 하게 꼭 또베 내세 갈라 강사 레네 다 간제 녀모 응은교버 숙청 마제 와게 디 용거로 와서게
뉴모 제가 뉴모 다 농바티베 뉴모 세야지 랑자티베 제요 디 창고 뉴모 뭐죠 개토 말이스 송송송 그래서 랑세 저와제베 디 창고 뉴모 송송조 말이
Yeah, so Geshe still wants to make that fine distinction that by realizing that kind of selflessness, that you can overcome the manifest delusions associated with grasping at that self, but not any other forms of delusions, right? That will relate it to intrinsic reality. Okay. All right, we'll stop there today. We'll continue. We have some prayer requests, I believe.
Prayer requests today for those who have passed away include prayers for Curtis Lan Le, who passed away on March 26th. He passed due to cancer. Please keep Curtis in your prayers. Next are prayers for Lucy Schuster, who passed away on March 28th. Please keep her in your prayers. Prayers for Gary Alan Spanovich, who recently passed last week. And Gary Alan has always been kind to the monastery, and particularly to our tours. And he hosted the monks in Portland for many, many years. So please keep Gary Allen in your prayers. The next is continued prayers for Sally Kaufman, who is the mother of Jeff and Susan Lieberman, who have also been very kind to the monastery via assisting our tours in the Encinitas area for many years. So please keep Sally in your prayers as well. Along with everyone who has recently passed away, who was just mentioned today, may we keep all the recently deceased in our prayers and dedications. May they be free from all suffering and purified of all negative karma accumulated since beginningless times. May they be reborn with all precious freedoms and endowments. May they meet the Dharma and a qualified guru and quickly achieve liberation and enlightenment. Prayers for those who are still with us this week include prayers for Le Ha Ving, who is currently in the hospital for a heavy heart condition, and heart surgery may be necessary soon, so please keep Le Ha Ving in your prayers. And then Katie Otter, who underwent collapsed lung surgery yesterday morning. So requested prayers for her quick recovery and regaining full health. And then prayers for Michael, Olivia, and Sylvia. Prayers for their good health, peace, and well-being. Along with those just mentioned, for all beings that are still living, may they be free from all obstacles, hardship, and negative karma. May their wishes and prayers be fulfilled. May they be guided by the blessings of the three jewels, and may they experience everlasting peace and happiness. The Medicine Buddha and Avalokiteshvara prayers that we do for prayer requests have been passed out and are along there on your tables along with the general prayer text. So please follow along. It's that sheet of paper that you all have in front of you. Please give a moment to request the monks in Tibetan. It's been a couple of weeks since I last did that. I'm already forgetting how to do this. Lan le sarwa kense neba khasin chinda sumbe tari nyu sarula chonsharwa dene tsele deba Lucy Schuster ani khasin chinda sumbe tari nyu tsabge la chonsha dene Gary Allen Spanovich shungye di ngeje chonsharwa khon nima kunze chasan churgi la shushi robanangwa res shushkari chimbo resigdo khazi losong wanjugi yigi leswa orishazo tume nauronas chamju shurushi sigdo tene adi nyamdal ya sa khazi ya daw ni sumskon chonsasha de ni motune ani pagi tume nauronas shoji Sally Kaufman shung tanda Sally Kaufman shung di Jeff dan Susan Lieberman yigi ama redwa Jeff dan Susan Lieberman ni korani ya tul shushkari chimaden res peje da kari cheshu cha resigdo losong wanjugirwa ochazani ama khora tang pege ta da khaji kon chomani mutune khajani tumenaro nasini shurushi sigdo tadine sedan tembaliya le ha wing sarwa le ha wing shungidi ama nyaga gi choga sharwa no khonta na menga na yosarwa te zara te susarani khora ning ne bardo 예 닝자 저도 지금 샤주 당고 키그레스네 어때스 인양가 주셔서 공이셔도 아니 통면나로 나스 더드니 KD orders 세단 템바 카산 쇼게 로아 다 버기 샤주 당셔봐 아니 지 니시슨라 용아 기체도 통면나로 나스 데니 sedan demba Michael Olivia Sylvia sum ya chik tedan yong'a ta ani ji yawo yong'a le ya ani thumen na nas no dirisha
And please add to our prayers all those who died in the 7.7 earthquake in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, and Thailand, and who are still struggling. Burma ya sayun chambas kyab song again. There me mangushi shisha ta Thailand the watch it get yeah chambas now.
Sanyu konda chore sharwa ge sanyu konda che nyangai nyangar be no sanyu los kanji sanyu konda cho pere sharwa deni September la ya 이 접절라들은 이제 고고메 공조를 봐. 어디 뛰니마 그냥 초 디스페어 레슨. No.
So we will do the medicine Buddha prayer first for those who are still living and dealing with health issues, and then we will do the Avalokiteshvara for the deceased. 도제 권라 뇽베 좀된데 천장 퇴베 년도 동에 도존에서 상계 면계 면도 야예 외라 차제로 대타 백가제 마음 백가제라서 섬과 대해서 대담 백가제 마음 백가제 섬과 대해서 한계와 대 뇨도다 멘베게고 루조네 로와 지장 대사랑 그와쇼 아블록테슈라 차동 콜륜 유벤 예보도 젠동 개와 성배 상계동 강라 강대 대라데 전바 전례 제라 장제로 엄마니 빼매홍 엄마는 매매 호리 겨와디 뇨도다 제레스완 루조네 도와지자 대사랑 그버쇼 page booklet page number 3 로드 자즈 위종 백가데 계산 봉외 주동 멤버 电报进了王道地区为常年出关交了所望的 page 5马王大门关键东亚的港日中所年的甚至张根交往年华也是间当中定制马为西巴电信这边经过这边谢谢牛关常驻等等龙道他们这北院间留下家族更多小的特上广大接着装备用着有的特别两个线龙日的间那边白的头顶看的大部小的到那空门这把南大官电当周围喷的周围人着居民这边进来些街上对接等多小的其实拉面土界没浪的街上对接等等上面初中多阶段东巴其他门本两个轮着说page 9 Ramjan Shinga Gombo Tseba Me Zodo Namje Geyun Drama Jo Chozo Zeye Lazo Tamze Tade Mishi Choge Mojo Toden Chedang Jawa Ye Shiro Tenbang Zimbe Beyun Je Tade Duje Yang Dui Ninje Wongbo Shabden Sho Jiden Sumgwe Chana Beme Tenbe Zawa Soso Tawa Namda Chudin Yangda Lamba Ye Losan Genden Bedo Tezhong Yajin Nonzin Yangbe Shin Samjo Namje Sangzin Junbe Gongzhong Xela Songzhu Debe De Denbe Ngada Chenbo Shabden Chebe Donga Kowa Mojo De Zunbe Lilang Siyu Bongzha Zunbe Dunden Leshe Kejo Xinyin Chenbo Shabden Sho Kebe Langdo Guixi Zeda Ze Zunbe Chara Niezo Rangsa Sangben Dije Regon Yixi No Sumden Xinyin Chenbo Shabden Tesan Rolan Jawe Tende Ji Menjong Taje Zangmen Sijin Labjin Zijin Tende Beshawe Shabden Sho Shuzon Gyawa Seje Chenla Dan Tuden Tamjin Songben Chenle Daja Lasan Tabe Denbe Jeda Menben Dungwen Lundro Sho Changjo Simjo Rinpo Che Maje Bana Yeju Jewa Nyamba Meba Gone Gondo Pewa Sho Tongni Tawa Rinpo Che Maje Bana Jewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondo Pewa Sho Sa Shi Beijing Joshi Medo Zhang Rera Linxi Ninde Yenba Sangye Shindo Mid Zhogen Nanda Jingla Jeba Sho Kare Rawe Gorwe Shingamzo Pendan Dewa Malu Jongwe Jere Sewa Tenzin Gyeltsen Shabe Seden Bado Denjo Ji Yidang Guru Mandel Niyang Da Ya Min Yewa Gundo Yangda Lamang Dan Deme Cheje Bela Lonju Sada Lamje Yunde Rabzo Nin Doje Changi Goba Nyu Dojo